Thanks for joining me for this edition of the Author's Corner, brought to you by KNEO 91.7 FM The Word. I'm Roberta Foster. Today I welcome Tasha Hackett to Author's Corner, and she's the author of the book Bluebird on the Prairie, which is published by Electric Moon Publishing. She'll tell you more about how to find this book and her other books at the end of the program. Let me tell you a little bit about Tasha. She proudly sings every word of the We Sing Silly Songs albums and often pretends to be a ballerina while unloading the dishwasher, but her favorite thing is writing with hope and humor to entertain and encourage women. She is fueled by sunshine or hot chocolate, whichever is more readily available, and most of her time is spent with 4 chatty children and an incredibly supportive husband. And so, Tasha, thank you so much for being with us on Author's Corner.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
This is your first book, I believe, and so what compelled you to write this book and about this topic?
Yes, it is my first of many, hopefully many, but I had started an in-home sewing business, and I had 34 prom dresses in the living room. I had turned our living room into a sewing studio, and I had 2 babies and a kindergartner and the whole thing, and I hadn't seen my husband in forever, and I was like, just sit there and talk to me. And I was like cutting tulle off there's 100 yards of tulle on that dress. And he was irritated, and I was irritated, and I was like, just sit and talk to me. And then he asked me a hypothetical question. If you were going to write a book, what would it be about? And it's ironic because I was immediately annoyed, like, you're going to make me think hard right now. I just wanted to chit-chat. And I was like, I don't know, probably a historical romance like I like to read. And he just said, I'd write a zombie apocalypse. So we created this. So then we spent the next hours, I don't know, just brainstorming what if zombie apocalypse meets historical romance, which is not what I ended up writing, because I did. I was like, I'm going to write that book, and I wrote like 10 words when it hit me. I'm not writing about zombies are gross. I've never even read a zombie apocalypse because they're disgusting. But once I started, and I am an English major, I grew up thinking I would write a book someday, so it's not like I didn't read or, but thinking about writing a book and actually writing a book are 2 very different things. And I realized I had no idea what I was doing. So I stopped and I read every book about how to write a book. Mm-hmm. And then I started again. It took me 3 years. Okay. And, so zombies are out. What really happened, though, is that God used this story to help me process grief. We had a miscarriage like 7 years before this. It happened that I had written about a widow. I'm not a widow. I wasn't thinking that I relate to this widow, but it's a historical romance. Everybody's either an orphan or a widow, and then I was like, I cannot have a man come into this town and fix all of her problems. I won't do it. Okay. Because if you have someone who's actually grieving, and then you tell them a story, just meet someone new, everything will be perfect again. That will do more damage than anything, I think. Mm-hmm. And so then I didn't know how to finish her story because I had not healed from that. So my spiritual journey needed resolved. Resolved is not the right word, but because I did not stop. I didn't stop believing in God or praying or anything, but I stopped asking God for things after my miscarriage, which is spiritually pretty immature. Like, if I don't ask him, that'll show him. Like, what is that about? You know what I mean? But it was like my way of showing him I don't have to depend on you because I felt he had let me down. Okay. Which, I hadn't asked for this baby, and then in my heart I felt like he had taken the baby. Mm-hmm. Which all good things come from God. Amen. And yet, here was this thing that I wanted more than anything to have it taken away. And so I have 4 kids. It wasn't like I was struggling with infertility, but processing that and realizing how much of my outlook on life had changed. Mm-hmm. I was, I'm not Eloise in my story. She is a grieving widow. And I don't want to pretend to really know what that is, but I do understand grief, and I gave her all of it.
Yeah.
It's not a
did.
depressing story, but I gave her, you read it. Like, she is like that poor girl. But she also is protecting herself. When you are happy and then something bad happens, it feels worse than if you had just never been happy. So that's what she's protecting herself from.
Okay.
But,
all right.
Yeah, I worked through a lot of stuff.
One of the things that I found interesting is you actually live in Nebraska, and the book is based in Nebraska. So as you were talking about at the beginning, how much about researching. So did you have to actually research a lot about Nebraska, or did you just depend on your personal experience?
Mm-hmm. Well, yes and no. So the weather is almost its own character. I have 4 Nebraska novels, and the weather plays an important role. It is hot, miserably hot in the summer. It is cold in the winter.
Right.
We have a nice spring, but then it might snow in April. So I have that in the book. You know, we mentioned the clouds and the way the grass bends in the wind, and it's lovely. So the weather, I loved to put that in there.
Okay.
But yes, I did a ton of research on Nebraska. It is a Swedish town in the book. I live in a Swedish town in Nebraska, so that was fun to do research on my own town. So anything I could find about my town 120 years ago, I put into the book.
Okay. I'm talking today with Tasha Hackett regarding her book, Bluebird on the Prairie, which is published by Electric Moon Publishing, and you're listening to Author's Corner. I'm Roberta Foster. So you've already mentioned Eloise a little bit as being a widow, and so tell us about the other main character in your book.
Okay, so Zeke. Zeke is short for Ezekiel, and I picked that name because of the hope in Ezekiel in the Bible.
Okay.
He's looking at the destruction of Israel, and yet there's hope in the whole dry bones coming to life, and I have a little passage of that. But that's where his name comes from.
Okay.
I wanted 2 sides of the same idea. Eloise and Zeke both had a hard life. She is now protecting herself from pain. He now knows life is full of trouble. I'm going to catch as much joy as I can.
Okay.
And so just trying to work through how can these 2 personalities help each other. And
yeah. Well, as you've mentioned, Eloise is a very young widow, but she lost her husband to suicide, and this isn't a subject often included in novels, and so why did you?
Yeah. So that came about toward the end. Like I said, it took 3 years to write. And then, so this was kind of, I don't talk about this part much, but here I am on radio. I'll just tell the world. After my 4th kid, my youngest 2 were not sleeping. My husband was coaching, and he was gone many weekends and late nights, and so I felt like I was just pulling the whole train by myself. Like, he's very supportive, but when you're gone, when he's not home, he's not home.
Right.
And so I knew he had to go to work. I had to deal with the babies at night. I was not okay. I was not sleeping. I was not functioning. And for the first time in my life, I had continual self-harming thoughts, which I had never dealt with before.
Okay.
And I won't go into too much detail, but I did have an instance where there was a mode to make it happen, and I had the very clear thought that I could be done. I could be done. I could meet Jesus right now. And I immediately, thankfully, I was close enough with Jesus in my home, and I rebuked that. I said, "This is not from God. This is the work of the devil." And I called my husband, who happened to answer, and I said, "You need to come home right now." And thankfully, he did. And we bled out money the next 6 months. I paid for a house cleaner. I paid for food service. I paid for lawn care. I paid for anything I could offload. But because of that experience, my heart kind of opened to those who have dealt with it and women who have asked for help and didn't get it.
Okay.
So that's been kind of I just thought of, like, what if I had asked for help and no one heard me? That's how women get to this point. And so I just had this idea, because I knew her husband had died, but I didn't really know how he died. And then when I started digging into it, I was like, oh, what if?
All righty. Okay, so one last question. I found it funny that both main characters made the same assumption that about shut down their relationship. That was very clever writing.
Thank you. I have to credit Jeanette Oak.
Okay.
So I grew up reading her books. Like, I read all of them. Every last one of them before I was 18. I had read all of Jeanette Oak. And in one of so When Calls the Heart, not the show, but the actual book that she wrote, there's a teacher who's dealing with a student and who she thinks is the dad. And then the dad, like, invites her out on this picnic, and she was like, are you kidding me? Absolutely not, because this man is married. Anyway, you find out it's not. It's the uncle who's single, and it's wonderful, and they should be together. But the whole book is this misunderstanding, and that's where I wanted to play that game.
Well, it was a good one.
Yeah, she's still wearing her wedding ring.
Yeah.
Because she's a grieving widow. She's not taking it off, and she's living with her brother, raising her nephew. Like, it's perfect. I did get some reviews like, one conversation would have fixed it. I was like, yeah, well, then you wouldn't have a book. So,
as the writer, you can help people that are reading it deal with a whole bunch of issues. And like that person said, just one conversation would take care of it. So hopefully the readers of this book realize that they need to be open about and question things that they have concerns about, right? So,
that's right.
All right. So today I'm talking with Tasha Hackett about her book, Bluebird on the Prairie. It's the first one she's written of many. And so Tasha, tell our listeners how they can find out more about this book, and then tell us briefly about the others you've written.
Yeah, so Bluebird on the Prairie is everywhere. Anywhere books are sold, you can get it. You can ask your library, they can order it. You can go to a bookstore, they can order it. So I do promote your local bookstore, ask them first. Also, anywhere online, tashahackett.com is my personal website if you want signed copies. If you want to host a book club, I can send you 10 books at a great discount. You just email me from their website. And Amazon, of course, Kindle, and the audiobook is also available through Audible. You can use one of your credit points for that. It is also free on YouTube.
Okay, so we have just about 30 seconds, so tell us what your latest writings are.
Okay, my latest writing, I have two contemporary small town, completely different in their quick and upbeat first person, a lot of pop culture funny references. So that's what I've been working on the past couple years. Those are Waiting for Gilbert and Planning for Nikki.
All righty. Okay, so again, I've been talking with Tasha Hackett about her book, Bluebird on the Prairie, and I certainly appreciate her sending me a copy of this, as well as Waiting for Gilbert. And as a personal note, I'll tell you that I started reading it and just about couldn't put it down, except that I had to. So it is very gripping as you get into the different characters and what they're going through in life. And so thank you so much for being with us today, Tasha, on Author's Corner.
Yes, thanks for having me.
And to our listeners, if you'd like to hear this interview again or share it with another, you can find it on your favorite podcast platform or through kneo.org. And so thank you so much for tuning in. This is Roberta Foster on the Author's Corner. Join me again next time.